I was 79 the day my own nephew, Tyler, leaned over my recliner and called me foggy. He said it soft like he thought I wouldn't catch it, but I heard him. I heard every damn syllable. That was the moment I knew he thought the dementia talk had finally landed, that I was slipping, confused, easy to manage, that I wouldn't notice what he was siphoning from my accounts at U.S. Bank. And I'll tell you something, since it's just you and me here, I let him think it. It was June 4th, 2022, around 4:15 in the afternoon. Hot day in Dayton, Ohio. Humidity so thick you could chew it. I remember the smell of dust from my box fan and the ache in my right hip where the joint clicks when I shift. Tyler stood there in his clean Nike sneakers, white as lies, and said, "Uncle Ron, do you remember where you keep your debit card? You misplaced it again last week." I could see the smirk hiding behind his fake concern. He'd been pushing that narrative for months. Forgetful Ron, confused Ron. Poor old man who can't manage his own money. I blinked slow and said, yeah, somewhere in the drawer, I think. I even made my voice trail off a little, not too much, just enough for him to believe the story he wanted to believe. He nodded with that condescending little tilt people use on toddlers. "It's okay. I'll help you sort things out. You know I'm here for you." Funny thing, hearing a lie from someone you've known since he was in diapers. The first time he said he'd help me, it meant something. I taught that boy how to bait a hook down at Cedar Creek Lake. I taught him how to sand a piece of oak without tearing the grain. I was there when his father walked out, sat with him on my porch, gave him my old army blanket so he'd sleep through the storms. And now here he was, pretending to shoulder the weight of my life, while his hands were in my retirement like a raccoon in a trash can. I watched him walk through my living room, straightening things that didn't need straightening, his way of taking ownership. He stopped at my bookshelf, running his finger along the spine of the Timex box where I kept a few keepsakes. I asked him, "How S work?" just to see if he could lie while moving. He said, "Fine. Better lately," and I'll be damned if he didn't glance away when he said it. That's when I knew the withdrawals, those little ones at first, $120 here, $80 there, had grown into something bigger. I'd seen the numbers on my last statement. $7,500 missing over 2 months, gone like breath on a mirror. "You hungry?" I asked him, soft and warbly, playing the part. "I could warm up some chili." He shook his head. "No, Uncle Ron, you sit. You should rest more. I'll take care of everything." "Everything?" I repeated. "Yeah," he said, and this time he looked right at my bank folder on the end table. That was the shattering right there, not the missing money. Not the way he hovered over me like a vulture over roadkill. It was that look, calculated, practiced, confident. He'd done the math. He'd decided I was alone enough, old enough, slow enough to be plucked clean. And he believed nobody would ever question him. Family doesn't like to suspect family. Makes them uncomfortable. I shifted in my chair, letting my hand tremble a little. "Tyler," I said, "I've been feeling fuzzy. I might need help keeping things straight." He softened his expression so fast it was like he rehearsed it. "Of course you do. I'll take good care of you. I promise." He sat on the coffee table across from me, hands clasped like a pastor delivering a eulogy. "You don't have to worry about anything anymore." I stared at him for a long second, long enough for him to think I was trying to process his words, long enough for him to feel safe. Then I said, low and gravelly, "I know." And that was the truth. I knew exactly what he was doing. I knew exactly what he thought, and I knew exactly where this road was going to lead. You're probably wondering why I didn't confront him then, why I didn't throw him out on his ass, call the police, call his mother, call the bank, call someone. That's the kind of question people ask when they haven't been old yet, when they haven't seen the way folks stop believing you once your hair goes silver. If I'd accused him right there, he would have spun it around like cotton candy. Uncle Ron is confused. Uncle Ron's memory is slipping. Uncle Ron must have spent it and forgot. I'd seen that play before. I wasn't going to let him script my role. No, I needed him comfortable. I needed him confident. I needed him to believe I couldn't tell the difference between Thursday and Christmas. And I needed him to keep stealing. Because once he crossed a certain line, there'd be no crawling his way back out. Before he left, he put a hand on my shoulder. "Rest, okay? I'll be back tomorrow to help with your bills." I nodded slowly and said, "Thank you, son." I hadn't called him son since he was 13. It broke something in him, softened his face into something almost remorseful. Then he pocketed the spare house key from the dish by the door. I didn't say a word about that. I wanted him to think he was invisible. What Tyler didn't know, and what you wouldn't know unless I told you, is that 2 days earlier I'd walked into the Montgomery County Senior Resource Center and spoken with a legal advocate named Margaret Chen. Sharp woman, steady voice, didn't treat me like a relic. She said, "If what you're describing is true, Mr. Walters, you need evidence, hard evidence." I remember her tapping a yellow legal pad with her pen. "Let him dig the hole, just don't get in it with him." So I watched him leave my house that evening with my key, humming to himself, probably thinking he was one step from owning everything I'd built in 80 years. He thought my dementia was real. And that mistake, that one miscalculation, it was going to cost him every penny of the $90,000 he hadn't yet stolen, but was damn sure planning to. Before all this, before the missing money, before the legal pad, before I started letting my hands shake on purpose, my life was quiet in a way most men my age dream of. I had my little house on Linden Avenue in Dayton, the one with the peeling white paint and the maple tree my late wife, Carol, planted back in '87. I knew every creak of the floorboards, every draft that slipped under the windows in January, every neighbor by the sound of their car engine. You ever notice how a house becomes a companion after enough years? Mine sure did. Woke up with it, went to bed with it, fixed what it asked me to fix. At 79, I didn't need much. Could still mow my own lawn most weeks if my hip wasn't flaring. Could make a pot of chili big enough to last 3 days. Could sit at my kitchen table with a cup of Folgers and feel like the world wasn't half as dangerous as the news made it seem. I wasn't lonely, not really. Carol had passed in 2014, cancer, cruel and fast, but I talked to her picture on the mantle more than I talked to most people. That might sound sad to someone younger, but when you've loved someone for more than 50 years, talking to their picture feels more real than half the people breathing around you. I'd always been the steady one in the family. Worked 36 years at the GM plant before it shut down. Union man, UAW Local 696, proud of it. Woke up at 4 a.m. every day, rain or snow, packed my lunch, punched the clock, earned my keep. Never took a handout, never left a debt unpaid. That's how I was raised, and that's how I raised my 2 boys. But life's got a mind of its own, and families grow in ways you don't expect. Tyler was my sister Linda's kid. That woman loved him with every molecule she had. I still remember him at 11, curly blonde hair bouncing around while he ran across my yard with my old lab, Baxter. I thought he was the kind of kid who'd grow up right, bit shy but kind. He used to sit on my front steps while I sharpened tools and ask questions about everything. Why do you wet the stone first? How do you know which wood is good wood? He used to call me Unc, like it was a badge of honor. Back then, if you told me that same boy would grow up to take advantage of me, who'd kept him fed during the months his mom worked double shifts at the hospital, I'd have laughed you right out of my driveway. Betrayal doesn't come from the people you expect. It comes from the people you never even thought to guard against. The first sign of trouble came years after Linda passed in 2019. Tyler didn't have much direction then. He dropped out of community college twice, hopped job to job, Amazon warehouse, roofing, a short-lived try at a car dealership. Liked to talk big. "Gonna run my own business someday, Unc," he'd say, tapping his phone like he had a whole future trapped in there. Carol used to smooth my arm and whisper, "He'll figure it out. Kids take longer these days." Maybe he would've, maybe he even tried. But then came 2021, the year I fell off the porch step and cracked 2 ribs. That's when he started coming around more, bringing groceries, changing light bulbs, asking questions about my bills. At first it felt like family stepping up, and I was grateful. Those ribs hurt like the devil every time I coughed. One afternoon I was sitting in the kitchen with the sun hitting the vinyl floor just right, warming my slippered feet when he said, "Unc, you ever think about setting up autopay? Make things easier." He said it like he was talking about a TV remote. I didn't think much of it. My hands had been stiff lately, and the bank phone system confused me sometimes. I remember telling him, "Sure, set it up, long as I still see the statements." He smiled wide, too wide in hindsight. "Of course, I got you." Back then, the idea that he might use access to my accounts against me didn't even bubble up. I trusted him. Foolishly, completely. Because that's what you do when family looks you in the eye and promises help. There was a day later that fall, November 18th, 2021, cold enough you could feel winter waiting just outside the door. Tyler came by after work still wearing his Amazon vest. I was in the living room listening to the Bengals game when he walked in without knocking. "You okay, Unc?" he asked. "You didn't answer your phone." I told him it didn't ring, and he looked at me with that soft pity, the kind that makes your stomach twist. "Maybe you just missed it," he said gently. "It's all right." That was the first crack. Not the missing call phone's glitch, but that look. Like he'd cataloged me in his head as someone fragile, someone slipping, someone manageable. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel the years then. My hearing wasn't what it used to be. My knees sounded like broken branches every morning. My memory, well, I remembered everything that mattered, but I'd begun to lose the names of actors I used to watch or where I set the tape measure. That's how it starts, not with a dramatic failure of the mind, just little things. And I suppose Tyler saw those cracks and mistook them for a doorway. He started checking my mail for me, started asking if I wanted him to handle small stuff. He got me in the habit of handing him envelopes, just to make sorting easier. That was when he swapped the billing address on my U.S. bank accounts without telling me. I didn't find that out until much later. Looking back, I can see how deliberate it all was. But when you're living it, each step feels like help, like love, like someone watching out for you. You asked what life was like before the betrayal. This is the truth. Peaceful, predictable, quiet, and just vulnerable enough for a man like Tyler to see an opening. The saddest part, if he'd just asked me for money, I probably would have given it. Not 90 grand, of course, but enough to get him on his feet. Enough to show him he wasn't alone. But he didn't ask, he took. And the day he realized, I saw the truth behind his smile. That was the day everything in me shifted. You'll understand soon enough. Things were just beginning to crack then. I hadn't yet seen how deep the fault line ran. You ever notice how the first real sign of trouble doesn't feel like trouble at all? It's quiet, ordinary, something you tell yourself isn't worth making noise over. That's how it was for me the morning I found out Tyler had changed my billing address. It was January 6th, 2022. Cold, sharp air coming in through that stubborn window in the laundry room, the one I kept meaning to reseal. I'd woken up early. Older men wake up with the sun whether they want to or not. Made myself oatmeal, the instant kind, and sat at the kitchen table with Carol's old Cardinals mug full of black coffee. I remember the way the mug felt warm against my palms because my fingers had been stiff that morning, almost wooden. My mail was late and I'd been waiting on a statement from U.S. Bank. I had a feeling, one of those gut-level ones you can't explain. My dad used to call it the whisper. That little tug inside that says, "Something's off, son." I ignored it then. I regret that. Around 10, Tyler showed up. Didn't call, didn't knock. Just keyed himself in with my spare key, the one I thought he'd left in the dish by the door. He called out, "Unc, you up?" I said, "Where the hell else would I be?" But I said it with a chuckle so he wouldn't hear the edge underneath. He walked into the kitchen wearing that damn puffy jacket he always wore, the one that smelled faintly like weed covered with too much body spray. He reached for the coffee pot like it was his own kitchen, another little line he crossed before I noticed. "Mail came yet?" he asked casually. "No," I said. "I'm waiting on my bank statement." He froze a second too long. "Oh, you sure it's not in the stack over here?" "There is no stack over here." Right, maybe it's delayed." I saw his eyes flick toward the door like he needed to calculate something. That whisper inside me got louder. Later that week, I decided to walk down to the bank myself. I didn't tell Tyler. I put on my heaviest coat, grabbed my cane, my left knee was behaving like a rusty hinge, and took the bus to U.S. Bank on Wilmington Pike. I hadn't ridden the bus in years, but I didn't want Tyler offering me a ride. Didn't want him knowing where I was going. The bank was warm inside, humming with that fluorescent buzz that always gives me a headache. A young teller named Brianna, bright-eyed, polite, asked if I needed help. "Yes," I said. "I need a printout of my statements. I haven't been receiving them." She typed something, paused, squinted. Mr. Walters, your address is listed as West 3rd Street, apartment 8B, is that correct? West 3rd, that was Tyler's apartment. I felt my stomach drop like someone had stepped on my insides. My voice tightened. No, that is absolutely not correct. You change it. She shook her head quickly. No, sir, it was changed online. I took a breath. When? She checked again. Looks like October 12th. He'd been rerouting my statements for months. I remember gripping the counter, feeling the wood grain dig into my palm. Can you print the last 3 months for me? I asked quietly. I didn't want to sound shaken. Older men don't like to show weakness in public. It's drilled into us. She printed them, slid them across the counter, and I thanked her with a nod. I walked straight to the little seating area in the corner, sat down next to a fake ficus tree, and unfolded the papers. There they were. Withdrawals, transfers, cash pulls at ATMs I'd never been to, $220, $480, $600, then bigger ones, always spaced just enough to avoid flags, always withdrawn late evenings, times I'd been at home watching the Reds or asleep in my recliner. My breathing changed, slow, heavy. I could feel my pulse in my neck. The numbers blurred for a moment and I had to blink hard to clear my vision. I whispered, "That boy is robbing me." It didn't feel real, not yet, just like finding paw prints but not seeing the animal. I went home that day angry, quiet angry, the kind that sits behind your ribs like coals. I didn't call Tyler, didn't confront him. I needed to understand what I was dealing with. 2 nights later, he showed up again, holding 2 grocery bags like he was doing me a favor. Bread, canned soup, bananas. He set them on the counter and said, "Thought you might need these." I looked at him, really looked at him. The nervous energy, the way he stood angled toward the door, the sweat on his forehead even though it was cold outside. And then he said it, the line that made something inside me snap hard enough to echo. "You've been feeling a little mixed up lately, Unc. Forget things. Happens at your age." "My age?" I asked. "Yeah," he said gently. "It's nothing to be ashamed of. I'll help you keep track of stuff, okay?" I stared straight into his eyes, and something about the way he held my gaze, too steady, too rehearsed, told me everything I needed to know. He wasn't helping me because I needed help. He was helping me because it made his theft easier. I let my voice shake. Maybe you're right." He softened immediately. "Course I'm right, that's why you got me." Then he reached for the stack of mail on the table, my mail, and said, "Let me look through this for you. Don't want you confused." That was the moment, the unmistakable first crack. I took the mail back from his hand. I didn't rip it away. I wasn't ready to show my hand yet, but I placed my palm over the envelopes firmly. "I can still read," I said. He smiled lightly. "Sure, Unc, just trying to help." But his eyes darkened. He didn't like being told no, not anymore. He left soon after, didn't take the groceries with him, didn't say goodbye. And I watched him walk down my driveway with a certainty forming in my chest like cooling iron. He wasn't going to stop, not on his own. The hardest part of that whole week wasn't the money. It wasn't even the lies. It was realizing that the boy I once carried on my shoulders had learned to look at me not like family, but like opportunity. And that meant only one thing. War was coming. The moment everything truly broke, the moment the crack turned into a full-blown split you can't patch with hope or excuses, came on February 14th, 2022. Valentine's Day. Strange, isn't it? A day meant for love becoming the day I discovered what love really costs when you give it to the wrong person. It was around 3:30 in the afternoon. I remember because Judge Judy was on, and I just made myself a bologna sandwich with too much mustard. The house was quiet except for the rumble of my old refrigerator. I heard the mail slot clink, and something about the weight of what fell onto the floor made my heart jump. Old men get feelings about things. We don't talk about it, but we do. I shuffled over, bent down slow. My back had been stiff since the cold front rolled through, and picked up a thick envelope from U.S. Bank. Not the usual trifold. This one was heavy, dense. When I tore it open at the kitchen table, A stack of printed statements slid across the wood surface like a guilty confession. There it was, plain as day. $17,400 missing. Not over months, not in dribs and drabs. Gone in 3 weeks. And the last withdrawal, made at 10:48 p.m. 2 nights earlier, was for $4,000 at an ATM on West 3rd. I knew where that was. A strip of stores I wouldn't walk after dark even in my younger days. A place Tyler never mentioned going. A place where people take cash because cash has no memory. My hands shook, not the pretend kind, not the kind I used to fool him. These were real tremors, deep ones, the kind that come when your body realizes before your mind does that your life has been violated. I whispered, "No, no, no," and leaned back in the kitchen chair so hard it scraped across the linoleum. Then I saw the printout page I hadn't noticed yet, the one marked profile changes in small, neat letters at the top. I scanned it. My stomach turned. Primary email, changed. Primary phone number, changed. Security questions, changed. Contact address, changed. All changed, all to Tyler's information. He didn't just take my money. He took me, my name, my identity, my access. He'd wrapped his hands around the whole structure of my life and squeezed until I couldn't breathe without him knowing how many breaths I took. I remember saying out loud, "He took it all. He took control of everything." My voice sounded small, far away, like I was listening to myself through a radio. A memory hit me right then. Tyler at 12, sitting on my porch with a busted lip after some kids had jumped him at school. I held a cold cloth to his mouth and he cried, not loud but those little gasps kids get when they feel safe enough to fall apart. I told him, "No one gets to hurt you while I'm here, kiddo." Funny how promises work. Back then I made it to protect him, and now here I was, needing protection from him. I stood up too fast, blood rushed to my head and grabbed my coat. I needed to see him, needed answers. I wasn't ready to confront him fully, not yet. But I needed to look into his face and see if he still had any part of that 12-year-old boy left inside. His apartment was on West 3rd. I called a lift because my truck had been making a grinding sound I'd been ignoring. When I got there, the sky was starting to turn pink, that weird winter pink that always makes me think of Carol making stew on Sundays. I knocked on the door. I heard movement, a pause. Then Tyler opened it with a smile so bright it could have lit up the whole damn hallway. Wow, hey, didn't expect you." He said it too loudly, too brightly. My heart sank. People only talk like that when they're hiding something big enough to swallow a room. I stepped inside. The place smelled like old pizza and the kind of body spray young men use when they don't want to admit they haven't showered. His TV was on pause, some video game with neon lights, and there were envelopes on his counter. One of them had my name on it. My breath hitched. He noticed. "Oh, that just mail that got mixed up. I was gonna bring it over." "Mixed up?" I asked quietly. "Yeah, happens." He grabbed the envelope too fast, like a magician snatching a coin before the audience notices. He shoved it into a drawer. Something inside me cracked open. I heard myself ask, "Tyler, did you change my bank information?" He blinked once, slow, like he needed to reboot his expression. "What? Why would I do that?" "Don't lie to me," I said, my voice trembling for real now. "Don't you lie to me in my face." He put his hands up defensively. "Look, you've been forgetting things. I've been trying to help to keep things organized." "My entire profile was changed," I said, stepping toward him. "My email, my phone, my address. You made yourself the gatekeeper." He swallowed hard. "I only did that because you asked me to help, because you said you were overwhelmed." I shook my head. "I never said that." "You did," he insisted. "You probably forgot." Those words, "you probably forgot," hit me harder than any punch I ever took. Because in that moment, Tyler wasn't just stealing my money. He was trying to rewrite my reality. He walked toward me with his palms out, trying to soothe things over. Listen, you're not yourself lately. Everybody sees it. I'm stepping up because no one else will." I stared at him, really stared. And I saw it, the cold calculation behind the soft voice, the way he decided who I was without asking me, without caring. "You think I'm losing my mind," I said. "I think," he hesitated, "I think you need help." "My help or yours?" He didn't answer. That was the moment it shattered. The moment the last bit of benefit of the doubt evaporated like breath on a window. I walked to the door. He said, "Unc, you okay?" I turned and looked at him. This young man I once carried on my shoulders, and I said, "You made a very big mistake." Then I walked out. In the lift ride home, my hands shook, not with fear but with clarity. The kind that comes when you realize someone you trusted has chosen their path, and now you have to choose yours. Tyler thought my dementia was real. And now he was going to find out just how clear my mind really was. The days after I walked out of Tyler's apartment felt like falling through thin ice, slow at first, then sudden, then all at once. You don't realize how much of your life depends on small routines until those routines start slipping through your fingers. And the worst part, half the people around you assume it's just age catching up. It was February drifting into March, and Ohio was stuck in that ugly stretch where winter just won't quit. The cold settled into my joints like concrete. I found myself moving slower, breathing heavier, thinking too much. Grief does that, because betrayal is a kind of grief, you know, a funeral for a relationship you didn't know had died. I kept the statement spread out on my kitchen table for days. Every morning, I'd sit there with my coffee and stare at the numbers. $17,400 gone. But that wasn't the sum of it, not even close. I knew there were transactions I hadn't seen yet, things Tyler had been hiding while the mail went to his place. I started forgetting things, not big things, but little ones. Whether I'd taken my pills, whether I'd turned off the coffee pot, whether I had locked the back door. And every time I caught myself slipping like that, a quiet panic rose inside me. What if I really was losing it? What if Tyler wasn't just lying to me? What if he'd seen something I had? That fear right there, that's what started the descent. 3 days after Valentine's Day, I got a call from the gas company. "Mr. Walters, we haven't received payment for the last 2 cycles." The woman on the phone was nice enough, but something about the way she said "sir" made me feel small. I said, "I have auto pay. I haven't missed a bill in my life." She cleared her throat. "Your auto pay was disabled last month." I felt a deep, sickening cold in my chest. Disabled by who? "By the account holder," she said. That was the first time I felt truly unsafe in my own house. It's strange. Guns, storms, break-ins, none of that ever rattled me the way that phone call did. Because when someone else is controlling your bills, your money, your access, they're controlling you. Your life becomes clay in someone else's hands. I hung up and sat on the couch, didn't turn on the TV, didn't move. The old clock on the mantel ticked loud like it was counting down something I didn't want to face. Around 7 that evening, the phone rang again. It was Tyler. "Unc, you doing okay? You sounded off the other day." I felt my jaw tighten. "I'm fine." "You sure?" he asked in that syrupy voice he used when he wanted something. "You know, I've been thinking maybe I should take over more of your paperwork, make things simpler, keep you from stressing out." I said nothing. Silence is a powerful tool. He filled the space fast. "Unc, listen, I went to the bank," I said quietly. Dead silence. "Then why would you do that?" "Because I needed answers." "I told you I'd handle things," he snapped, just a hair too sharp before he smoothed his voice over. "You're making this harder than it needs to be. You changed my information." "I was trying to help." "You stole from me." "That's not fair," he said, voice rising. "You're confused. You don't remember what you asked me to do." There it was again, that gaslighting tone that digs under your skin like a splinter. Something inside me fractured. "Don't call me confused." "Unc," he said, almost pleading now, "I'm just trying to look after you. You can't do this alone anymore." "I've been doing it alone for 80 years, I muttered. "That's the problem," he snapped. I could feel him slipping into anger, the kind that bubbles when someone's lies start losing their grip. His breathing got heavier through the phone. "Look," he said, "I'll come by tomorrow, we'll talk it through. But stop messing with the accounts, okay? You're just making things worse for yourself." He said for yourself, but we both knew he meant for him. I didn't answer. He sighed loudly, "Get some sleep, Unc." When the call ended, I sat there staring into the dark living room. The streetlight cast a long shadow of the maple tree across my floor. Funny thing, I started talking to Carol's picture without meaning to. "What do I do, sweetheart?" I asked the empty room. I didn't expect an answer, didn't get one. But I felt something, maybe memory, maybe guilt, maybe stubbornness, stiffening my spine. The next morning, I drove to the Montgomery County Senior Resource Center again. My hands were cold on the steering wheel. My heartbeat felt too loud. When I walked into Margaret Chen's office, she looked up and immediately saw something in my face. "What happened?" she asked. I slid the statements onto her desk. She read them carefully, line by line, her brow tightening. "This isn't small anymore," she said. "No," I replied, "it's not." She looked at me with real seriousness. "Mr. Walters, this is elder financial exploitation. It's criminal, and he's escalating." I swallowed hard, I'd known it, but hearing her say it out loud, it made the truth solid, undeniable. She leaned forward. "You are not losing your mind, you are being abused." Those words, they hit me like a blow. I felt tears sting my eyes, first time I'd cried in months. I looked down, ashamed. "I'm supposed to be stronger than this." "You're human," she said gently, "and you're being manipulated." I rubbed my face. "What do I do?" Margaret folded her hands. "You gather evidence, you build a case, and you stay quiet, let him think he's winning." I nodded slowly. That made sense, but it also felt like standing still while someone tightened a rope around my chest. She added, "You cannot confront him. Not yet. The more comfortable he feels, the more careless he'll get." I breathed out, "So I let him keep stealing." "For now," she said, "because when we're done, he won't see the end coming." When I drove home that day, something shifted inside me. The descent wasn't a free fall anymore. It was a path I could climb out of if I held tight, if I stayed sharp, if I kept the act going. But that didn't stop the darkness. That same week, I forgot to close the fridge one night. I burned my hand on a pan because I misjudged the timing. I left the TV remote in the bathroom and spent an hour looking for it. Each mistake chipped at me. Was I slipping? Or was my mind just tired from the stress? "You want the truth?" I didn't know. Not then. Not yet. And that was the worst part. I didn't just doubt Tyler anymore. I doubted myself. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I wasn't letting him win. Not even if it killed me. If part 5 was the fall, then what came next was the slow crawl back to my feet, painful, deliberate, and full of moments where I almost quit. I won't lie to you, gathering myself, gathering evidence, gathering allies. It damn near broke me before it saved me. But that's how these fights go. A man my age doesn't rush into battle. He prepares. It started the morning after I spoke with Margaret again. I woke up feeling like I hadn't slept at all, my body stiff, my thoughts heavy. The winter light through the blinds was thin and gray, the kind of light that makes everything feel older, but something in me had clicked. Margaret had named what was happening, elder financial exploitation. A crime. Not a misunderstanding, not a family spat. A crime. That word crime kept echoing in my chest. I sat at my kitchen table with a legal pad I hadn't touched since Carol died. I wrote one sentence at the top in big, shaky letters. "He thinks I'm weak. Good." Then I listed every withdrawal, every strange transaction, every moment Tyler had hinted at my supposed confusion. Seeing it all lined up in ink, not on a screen, not in my memory, made it real, made it undeniable, made it something I could fight. But I still needed help, real help, and help came from the most unlikely place. On February 28th, I went to the VA clinic for my routine checkup. My blood pressure had been up for weeks, stress will do that, and my doctor, a tired-looking man named Reeves, suggested I see one of the social workers, just to talk. I didn't want to, I hate being handled, but something in me said go. The whisper again. That's how I met Rosa. She was in her late 40s, maybe early 50s, warm brown eyes, hair pulled back tight, a name badge that said Rosa Delgado, LSW. She asked me how I was managing things at home. I told her I was doing fine. She gave me a look that said she'd heard that lie 1,000 times. Finally she said, "Mr. Walters, you don't need to tell me everything. Just tell me one thing you're worried about." I stared at the floor. "My nephew," I said eventually. "He's helping me with things, too much maybe." Rosa didn't judge, didn't jump to conclusions. She just nodded gently. "This happens more than you think," she said quietly. "Family can be wonderful. Family can also take advantage." I felt something in my chest twist. "I'm not some helpless old fool," I said, more defensive than I meant to be. "I didn't say you were," she replied. "But I think you're in a situation where someone wants you to feel that way." I looked up at her then, really looked, and I realized she understood. Not the numbers, not the transactions, but the humiliation, the slow erosion of dignity, the way someone can make you question your own reality. I told her everything. The statements, the mail, the address change, the lies, the way he talked to me like I was a faulty appliance. She listened without interrupting once. When I finished, she said, "Do you have anyone helping you legally?" "Yes," I said, "a woman named Margaret Chen." Rosa nodded approvingly. "Good, very good, but you need support in other ways too. If Tyler is escalating, he might try to isolate you." "He already has," I said. "Bill's rerouted, phone changed, he's trying to." "Control the narrative," she finished. "That's the first stage." My stomach nodded. "First stage of what?" "Of financial predators," she said softly, "even when they're family." I felt my throat tighten. "What can I do?" She reached across the table, not touching my hand but placing hers near it. "You document everything. You keep copies. You keep a timeline. And you don't let him know you're onto him." I nodded slowly. "And one more thing," she added. "You need someone who can help you with tech. These cases always come down to digital evidence, logins, timestamps, access trails." I rubbed my forehead. "I barely understand my phone." Rosa smiled. "Do you know anyone younger, someone you trust?" I hesitated. There was one person, someone I hadn't seen in a while, someone who used to mow my lawn when he was 15. Zach. A lanky kid who lived down the street, now grown into a quiet, good-hearted young man who worked in it over at Wright State. Last I heard, he'd gotten hired by some cybersecurity company in Columbus, but came home on weekends to help his mom. I hadn't spoken to him since Carol's funeral. But Rosa was right. I needed more than gut feelings and bank printouts. I needed someone who could understand the digital trail Tyler had left behind. So that night I found Zach's number in an old Christmas card Carol had kept. I stared at it for a long time, debating whether to call. Pride is a hell of a thing. Asking for help feels like admitting defeat, but defeat was what Tyler wanted, and I wasn't giving him that. I dialed. "Hello?" Zach's voice sounded older, deeper. "Zach, it's Ron Walters," I said. There was a warm surprise in his reply. "Mr. Walters, wow, hi, how are you?" "I've been better," I said. "You home this weekend?" "Yeah, actually, why?" "I could use your help. Something else happened." His tone changed immediately. "Say when, I'll be there." He showed up on Saturday afternoon with his laptop bag slung over his shoulder and that same awkward, earnest energy he had as a teenager. He stepped inside, looked at me carefully and said, "You look tired." "I am," I admitted. "Sit down, I have something to show you." I handed him the stack of statements, the notes I'd taken, the letter from the gas company, the page listing the account changes. His brow furrowed deeper with each passing minute. "Mr. Walters," he said slowly, "this is bad." "I know." "No, I mean, this is coordinated." He covered his tracks, changed access points. He's been logging in from different locations. He's trying to build a digital wall around your accounts. My stomach clenched. "Can you see what he did?" Zach cracked his knuckles, opened his laptop and said, "Let's find out." For the next 3 hours he worked quietly, methodically. Every so often he'd mutter something under his breath. Jesus, why would he do this? Or this is deliberate, man, real deliberate. I watched him navigate things I could barely understand. IP logs, security audits, account histories. Then he sat back suddenly. I found something. My heart pounded. What? Zach turned the laptop toward me. He logged into your account on February 12th from his apartment Wi-Fi. I can prove it. Your bank keeps device fingerprints. That's evidence. I stared at the screen, feeling something hot rise up in my chest. And look at this, Zach added, tapping another entry. He added his phone as a recovery number. That's unauthorized access. It shows intent. Intent. There it was, the word Margaret said mattered most. Zach looked up at me, eyes darkening with anger. Mr. Walters, he's siphoning you dry. If we keep digging, I bet we'll find even more. I swallowed hard. Will you help me build this case? Of course, he said without hesitation. You were always good to me. I'm not letting someone do this to you. Something heavy lifted off my chest. Not completely, but enough that I could breathe again. Over the next week, Zach came by 3 nights in a row. Each time with his laptop, each time finding more. Old login alerts Tyler had deleted. Text messages routed to his phone. Autopay accounts he'd shut off. Security questions he'd replaced with ones only he'd know. Every discovery felt like another punch to the gut, but every piece also made the case stronger. Margaret was thrilled. This is exactly what we need, she said. Keep letting him think you're declining, keep being agreeable. The more control he tries to assert, the more evidence we'll get. But the gathering wasn't just about documents. It was about gathering strength, gathering resolve, gathering the part of myself that Tyler hoped was fading. One night Zach packed his laptop and said, Mr. Walters, I'm sorry. This must be awful. I looked at him, feeling my throat tighten. It is, I said, but the worst part wasn't losing the money. What was? He asked. He made me doubt my own mind. Zach nodded slowly. Then let's make him doubt his. That line stayed with me. It became the first spark of something dangerous, something necessary. Revenge isn't one big explosion. It's the quiet gathering of flame. And my fire was finally starting to burn. I didn't sleep much the week everything finally started shifting into place. When you're pushing 80, your body likes its routines. Early bedtimes, early mornings, quiet afternoons. But that week, my mind wouldn't settle. It was like someone had turned on a furnace inside my skull. Heat, pressure, humming wires. Because now that I had Zach and Margaret and a growing mountain of evidence, the next step wasn't gathering anymore. It was setting the stage. And I'll tell you something only an old man can admit without shame. I was scared. Not of Tyler, no. I'd changed his diapers once. I wasn't afraid of the boy I used to carry on my shoulders. I was afraid of myself. Afraid I'd slip and give something away. Afraid I'd get confused mid-sentence. Afraid I'd forget part of the plan at the worst possible moment. Margaret warned me. He's looking for signs of decline, Mr. Walters. If he senses you're regaining control, he'll escalate. Every time she said escalate, my stomach tightened like a fist. So the setup had to be perfect. It started with the phone call. On March 9th, gray, overcast morning, I dialed Tyler's number. My finger hovered above the call button for a good 10 seconds. Then I pressed it. He picked up on the second ring. Unc, you doing okay? I made my voice small, foggy. I've been overwhelmed, bills and things. I think I messed something up. I could practically hear him smile through the phone. That's all right. I'll swing by tonight. We'll get everything sorted. Please do, I whispered. He thought that meant defeat. He thought the old man was finally collapsing inward. Good. That was step 1. Step 2 was harder, becoming helpless enough to be believable. I hated every second of it. Rosa coached me through the emotional part, how to pace myself, how to speak slower, how to let him fill the silence. She said, predators rush toward weakness. Show him exactly what he expects. Margaret coached me through the legal side. Let him touch the paperwork. Let him guide the conversation, but record everything. He'll reveal himself if he thinks you're fading. Which meant step 3 was the recorder. Zach came over that afternoon. He brought a little device no bigger than a thumb drive. This will pick up conversations clear as day, he told me. Just leave it plugged into the outlet near your recliner. It'll activate when it hears voices. I stared at it, such a tiny thing to hold so much weight. You sure this is legal? I asked. In Ohio, absolutely, he said. One-party consent. As long as you're part of the conversation, you're fine. I nodded, then let's do it. But the real setup wasn't the recorder. It was me. I had to make Tyler believe I was slipping fast, and that he was the only rope keeping me from falling. That evening I dressed in my oldest flannel, let my hair stay mussed, and turned off half the lights. The house felt dim, sad even to me. I sat in my recliner and practiced breathing slow and uneven. At 7:26 p.m., Tyler's car pulled up. I watched the headlights sweep across my living room wall. My heart thudded hard, slow, deliberate, like an old engine turning over in the cold. He let himself in with the key, didn't even hesitate. "Unc," he called softly, "you home?" "In here," I murmured. He walked into the room carrying a folder, my folder, blue plastic, one I thought I'd lost. Seeing him hold it flipped a switch inside me, rage bright and hot like a wire sparking, but I swallowed it down. I had to. "You look tired," he said, pretending to be concerned. "I am," I replied. "I can't keep up with things anymore." He pulled a chair up in front of me. "Then let me help you. That's why I'm here." I nodded weakly. I think the gas got shut off." He sighed dramatically. "Unc, this is why you need me handling things." He opened the folder and started flipping through papers he'd taken from my house weeks ago. Bills, statements, even my insurance documents. "What's this one?" he asked, holding up a bank notice. I squinted. I don't know, I can't remember." It was a lie. I knew exactly what it was. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Unc, listen. I think you should let me manage everything. Full control. Bills, accounts, passwords, all of it." There it was. The moment. I let my hands tremble. All of it. "Yeah," he said gently. "That way nothing gets messed up. You don't have to worry anymore." Would that mean power of attorney?" I asked. His eyes flashed, not excitement, not relief, but hunger, a kind of quiet greed that chilled me. "Just temporary," he lied, "just so I can take care of you." I let my gaze drift unfocused. "Maybe you're right." He smiled, the soft, victorious smile of someone who thinks the game is over. "Good," he said, placing a hand on my arm. "I'll bring the paperwork this weekend." He had no idea the recorder picked up every word. He had no idea Zach was already in the next room, quietly capturing the network logs from Tyler's phone connecting to my Wi-Fi. He had no idea Rosa had coached me on sounding vulnerable. He had no idea Margaret would take that recording straight to Adult Protective Services. He stood up satisfied. "You're doing the right thing, Unc." "I hope so," I whispered. "You trust me, don't you?" I let a long pause hang in the air, then nodded slowly. "You're the only one I have." That sealed it. He left my house 10 minutes later humming a tune, confident he'd won, confident the old man was slipping into his hands like wet sand. He didn't know the stage was set. He didn't know the trap was almost closed. He didn't know the next time he walked through my door, it wouldn't be as a caretaker. It would be as a suspect. It was March 12, 2022, a Saturday cold enough to make your breath hang in the air even inside the house. I remember sitting in my recliner that morning, hands wrapped around a mug of coffee I didn't finish. My stomach wouldn't tolerate more than a few sips. That's what happens when a man knows the next 24 hours are going to decide whether he gets his life back or loses it for good. Tyler had texted me the night before. "I'll be there around 3 tomorrow. Bring in the POA paperwork. We'll go easy on you, Unc, don't stress." Go easy on you. Those words kept echoing in my head like boots in an empty hall. Margaret had everything ready by then. She'd submitted preliminary documentation to Adult Protective Services the day before. But she told me the same thing she always told me. Recordings help. Timestamps help. But confrontation is useless without witnesses. Witnesses. That's why Rosa was coming. That's why Zach would be hidden in the back bedroom with his laptop. That's why the APS investigator, a man named Daniel Briggs, had parked 2 houses down in a gray Chevy Malibu and was waiting for my call. I wasn't just setting a trap anymore. I was about to spring it. The house was cleaned as best as my back allowed, not to impress anyone, just to keep Tyler from sniffing out that something was off. Abusers, manipulators, they get real sensitive to changes in routine. At 2:48 p.m., Rosa knocked gently. She came in wearing jeans, a soft maroon sweater, and a winter coat that still smelled like cold air. She squeezed my shoulder. "You ready for this, Mr. Walters?" "No," I said, "but we don't get to choose the timing, do we?" She smiled sadly. "No, but you're strong enough." Zach showed up 5 minutes later, slipping in through the back door like a kid sneaking home after curfew. He carried a small external drive and a headset. "Mr. W," he whispered, "I'll be in the spare room. I'll monitor everything that comes across your Wi-Fi when he connects his phone. If he logs into anything, even for a second, we'll have it." I nodded. "You're a godsend, kid." He gave a shy grin, just doing what's right. At 2:59 p.m., my heart started pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. I sat down in the recliner, made my face slack, made my breathing shallow. Rosa moved to the kitchen where she could hear but stay out of sight. The recorder in the wall outlet blinked once when it detected voices. Ready. At exactly 3:02, Tyler walked in without knocking. Of course he did. He wore that smug half-smile, the one that made him look like a boy trying on a man's face. He held a manila envelope under one arm and gave me a look I'd seen too many times, pity mixed with ownership. "Hey, Unc," he said warmly, "rough day." I let my gaze drift unfocused. I don't know." He stepped closer. "It's okay, I'm here now." My stomach twisted. He sat across from me and slid out the papers, power of attorney forms, printed from some online template he'd filled in. His handwriting sloppy, rushed. "Let's go over these together," he said. "This will make everything easier." I leaned back, voice trembling. Do you think I need this, Tyler?" He softened his tone. "Unc, you've been slipping, you know that. This is just practical." "Practical," I repeated, like the word was heavy. He nodded. "Once you sign this, I can access your accounts officially. No more mistakes, no more late bills, no more confusion." "Officially," I whispered. "So, you already have access unofficially?" His throat tightened. "Barely, but I saw it." "I mean, I've helped you before." "How did my address get changed?" I asked quietly. He blinked. "You asked me to." "How did my phone number change?" "You don't remember." "And the withdrawals," I whispered, "all that cash." His face shifted, just a flicker, annoyance, then frustration, then something darker. "Unc, you're getting confused," he said, leaning forward. "Let's not do this. I'm trying to help." Rosa stepped from the kitchen doorway like a ghost. "Then you won't mind explaining it to me, Tyler." He turned fast, too fast, eyes wide. "Who are you?" She showed her badge. "Rosa Delgado, VA Social Work Services." His voice cracked. "Why is she here?" I spoke softly, still in my frail tone. "She helps me like you." He swallowed hard. This is private family paperwork." Rosa folded her arms. "Mr. Walters has been reporting financial exploitation. I'm here to make sure he's safe." Tyler's voice rose an octave. "Exploitation? Are you serious? Look at him, he's slipping, he needs help." He stood, chest rising and falling fast. That's when I delivered the line Margaret told me would break him open. "Tyler, what else did you take?" He froze. I said it again, quieter. "What else did you take from me?" His jaw clenched. "You're imagining things." Rosa stepped closer. "Then you won't mind if we look at your phone." He jerked back like she'd slapped him. "Absolutely not." Right then, exactly then, his phone buzzed with a notification. Zach's voice crackled softly over the baby monitor in the hall. "Mr. Walters," he whispered, "we just detected his phone logging into your bank." I stared at Tyler. "Why are you still accessing my accounts?" He went pale. Then everything exploded at once. Footsteps outside. A firm double knock. The front door opening. A man's steady voice. "Tyler Green, my name is Daniel Briggs, Adult Protective Services. We need to speak with you." Tyler spun around. "What? No, you can't." He's confused. He doesn't know what he's saying. Daniel stepped inside, calm, official, carrying a notebook and an authority you can't fake. "We have documentation showing unauthorized access to Mr. Walters' accounts, changes to his personal information, and over $17,000 in unapproved withdrawals." Tyler's voice cracked sharply. "He told me I could help. He gave me permission. He doesn't even remember half of this." That was my moment. I straightened in my chair, slow at first, then fully. My voice was clear, strong. "Tyler," I said, "I remember everything." He stared at me like he'd seen a ghost. I continued. "The withdrawals, the address change, the lies, I remember it all, and I let you think I didn't." He shook his head violently. No, you said." "I said what I needed to," I replied, "because I wanted you to walk right into this." He staggered back, breath hitching. You played me." "Yes." Silence. Heavy as a tomb. Daniel stepped forward. "Mr. Green, I need you to come with me." Tyler looked at me one last time. Betrayal in reverse. The predator realizing he'd been prey. His lips parted like he wanted to say something. Apology, anger, justification. I'll never know. He didn't speak. He just hung his head and walked out the door. Rosa came to my side. "Are you all right?" I let out a long breath I felt I'd been holding for a year. "I am now." But the execution wasn't finished. Revenge doesn't end with handcuffs. It ends with the unraveling. You'd think the moment APS led Tyler out of my house would have felt like the end of things, like justice tied up with a neat little bow. But real life isn't a TV courtroom. Revenge doesn't end when the bad guy gets caught. No, sir. That's only when the real unraveling begins. And unraveling, it's a slow, messy thing. After Daniel Briggs escorted him to the gray Malibu, the house fell into a strange kind of silence. Rosa stayed with me for a while, making sure my breathing was steady, making sure I wasn't going to collapse from the adrenaline. Zach stepped out of the spare room with his laptop under his arm, looking shaken. "You okay, Mr. Walters?" he asked. I nodded, but it was a lie. I felt hollow, like someone had scooped out the inside of my chest and left only the shell standing. Rosa said softly, "This is the part people don't talk about, the aftermath." She was right. For 2 days, the house felt heavier than it ever had. Every room carried a memory of Tyler, him fixing a light bulb, him bringing groceries, him pretending to care. It's a strange kind of pain, realizing the person you loved was using your home like a stage. On the evening after the confrontation, I sat at the kitchen table with a legal pad in front of me, the same one with the words "he thinks I'm weak. Good," written at the top. But now those words didn't feel like a declaration. They felt like a question I didn't know how to answer. Was I weak? Was I cruel? Was I justified? Or was I just an old man who'd lost someone he loved, even if that someone didn't deserve it? You want the truth? I didn't feel victorious. I felt like a man standing over his own broken foundation. Justice doesn't always feel like justice. Sometimes it feels like grief in disguise. The unraveling kept coming. 3 days after the confrontation, Daniel Briggs called me. I answered on the 3rd ring. "Mr. Walters," he said, "I want to update you." My stomach clenched. "Go ahead." "Your nephew admitted to some access, but he's claiming he only did it because he believed you were declining mentally. He's positioning himself as your caretaker." I closed my eyes. Figures. But Daniel continued. "We have the login trails, the changes he made to your profile, the withdrawals, and the audio from the recorder. It paints a very different picture." "Will he be charged?" I asked. There was a pause. It's likely, but these cases take time. Time. That was the word I was growing more and more familiar with. After we hung up, I just sat there staring at the wall for a long while. I felt tired in a way sleep couldn't touch. The next unraveling came from my own family. My sister Linda's oldest daughter, Tyler's cousin, called me. Her name's Marissa, lives in Cincinnati. Sweet girl, good head on her shoulders, but she'd clearly heard something. "Uncle Ron," she said, her voice careful. "Tyler called Mom, she's upset." "About what?" I asked. "He told her you accused him of stealing. He said you're getting confused, and APS is involved because you misunderstood something." I couldn't help it, I laughed, not out of humor, out of disbelief, the audacity of it. "I'm not confused," I said firmly. "I know," she said. "I don't believe him, but Mom, she's struggling. She can't wrap her head around Tyler doing something like that." "Neither could I murmured. Marissa took a breath. "She wants to come up this weekend, see you, check in." I rubbed my forehead. "That's fine." "Do you want me to come too?" she asked. I thought about it, thought about facing more family eyes full of questions, doubts, fear. But then I thought about the truth. I didn't want to weather the unraveling alone. "Yes," I said, "come." When they arrived 2 days later, I braced myself. My sister Linda walked into my living room with her hands shaking. She looked around like she expected to see Tyler pop out from behind a chair. She sat down across from me and said in a trembling voice, "Ron, tell me what happened." I didn't sugarcoat it. I showed her the statements. I showed her the address changes. I told her about Tyler trying to get power of attorney. I even played her a portion of the recording. Her face sank deeper with every sentence. She covered her mouth with her hand. Tears spilled from her eyes. "Oh God," she whispered. "Oh God, my boy." I reached across the table and touched her wrist. "He made choices, Linda. You didn't raise him to be this. He chose it." She cried harder then, shoulders shaking. Marissa rubbed her back and whispered to her. It was a strange moment, me comforting a mother for the thing her son had done to me. That's when the unraveling turned into something else. Empathy, anger, guilt, relief, all swirling together so tight I couldn't tell one from the other. When they left later that evening, I stood at the window watching their car pull away. The maple tree outside rustled in the wind, the branches bare and trembling. I whispered, "Carol, you seeing all this?" There was no answer, of course. But I didn't feel alone. 2 days later, Margaret called. "Mr. Walters," she said, with that steady calm I'd grown to rely on, "APS is moving forward with a formal investigation. There will be interviews, possibly a hearing. It's all progressing." "How long?" I asked. "These cases often take months." Months. More waiting. More unraveling. But then she said something I didn't expect. "You've done everything right. You gathered, you documented, you stayed composed. Many people in your position never make it this far." I sat there holding the phone to my ear, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something close to pride. But pride has a shadow. Because every victory comes with a cost. And mine was that the boy I once loved like a son, the boy I once protected, was now facing criminal charges. Revenge isn't clean. It's messy, painful, and full of moments where you question the man you've become. But even with all the unraveling, even with the guilt, the fear, the grief, I knew the worst part was still coming. The reckoning. The day I would finally face Tyler again, not in my living room, but across a table where lies weigh nothing and truth weighs everything. I didn't sleep the night before the hearing, not a wink. My body was exhausted, but my mind was wide awake, pacing old memories like a restless ghost. All night I kept seeing Tyler at different ages: 12, crying on my porch, 18, grinning in his graduation gown, 29, standing in my living room with that fake concern plastered on his face. Love doesn't vanish cleanly. It frays, it rots, it lingers. The hearing was set for April 26, 2022, down at the Montgomery County Adult Protective Services Office. Not a courtroom, Just a long conference table, stale coffee, buzzing fluorescent lights, and a window overlooking a parking lot full of crew cab trucks and old sedans. Rosa came with me. Margaret came too, carrying a binder so thick it looked like she was hauling bricks. Daniel Briggs sat at the far end. He gave me a nod of reassurance when I walked in. Then Tyler arrived. He walked in wearing a wrinkled button-down shirt and slacks that didn't fit quite right, borrowed probably. His face looked different, younger somehow, but smaller, deflated, like someone who'd been living under a kind of pressure he hadn't planned for. He wouldn't look at me at first. He sat at the table across from me, tapping his knee, biting the inside of his lip the way he used to when he was nervous as a boy. For a moment, a brief, painful moment, I felt the urge to tell him it would be okay, that I forgave him. But then I remembered the night I found those withdrawals, the way he said you probably forgot, the way he planned to take everything I'd ever worked for. No, forgiveness wasn't owed here, not today. The hearing began quietly. Daniel outlined the evidence without dramatics, just facts, cold, heavy facts that landed like stones on the table. Unauthorized access. Address change. Phone change. Email change. Over $17,000 in withdrawals. Attempts to obtain control through power of attorney. Audio recordings. Device fingerprints confirming Tyler's logins. A digital trail Zach mapped out so cleanly it left no room for denial. Tyler kept shaking his head. His voice was small when he finally spoke. I was helping him, he said. He gets confused. He told me to do it. He said he couldn't handle things. Rosa leaned forward. Mr. Green, the audio recording captures you telling Mr. Walters he should give you full control, including power of attorney. He never asked for that. I was trying to keep him safe, Tyler snapped, louder than he meant to. Margaret opened her folder. You were trying to keep control. There's a difference. Silence. He slumped back in his chair. His leg bounced fast under the table. He looked at me for the first time, then really looked at me. Unc, he whispered, why do you set me up like that? The whole room went still. I took a breath. My voice came out low, gravelly, steady. Because you made me question my own mind, Tyler. You made me think I was slipping when I was. You took my money, but worse, you took my dignity. And I wasn't going to let you have the rest of me. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again, but no sound came out. Daniel cleared his throat. Mr. Green, based on the evidence presented, APS is pursuing charges of financial exploitation of an elderly adult. You will receive formal notice regarding next steps. Tyler covered his face with both hands, shoulders shaking. It wasn't dramatic crying. It was quiet, messy, confused. The kind a man does when he finally sees the mirror he's been avoiding. I expected to feel satisfaction. But all I felt was old, older than my years, like this whole ordeal had carved time out of me like bark from a tree. When the hearing adjourned, everyone filed out one by one. Rosa squeezed my arm. Margaret shook my hand firmly. Daniel nodded in that quiet way men do when they've done all they can. Then it was just me and Tyler left in the room. He looked up at me, eyes red. I never meant to hurt you, he said. His voice cracked. I needed money. I thought I could fix things before anyone noticed. You didn't give me a chance to help you, I said. He swallowed hard. I thought you'd say no. I might have, I admitted. But stealing from me, making me feel broken, that wasn't the way. He wiped his eyes with the heel of his hand. Are you going to hate me forever? I sighed deep, trembling. No, I said, but I won't trust you, not again. He nodded, as if that was the answer he'd expected all along. He stood to leave but paused at the door. I'm sorry, Unc. I nodded once, I know. He walked out, shoulders slumped, steps unsteady. And for the first time I realized the revenge hadn't brought me joy. It hadn't even brought me peace. What it brought was clarity. My life was mine again. My accounts were mine again. My dignity was mine again. But my family, that was something different now, something fractured, something changed. I walked out of the APS building into the bright afternoon sun. The light felt harsh but real, I breathed it in, felt it warm my face. My joints ached, my heart ached, but I was standing, still me, still fighting. When I got home, I sat in my recliner, the same one where all this started. The house felt quiet but not empty, more like a place I was learning to inhabit again. I looked at Carol's picture on the mantel and whispered, "I did the best I could." And for the first time in months, I believed it. Then I closed my eyes and let the silence settle around me, not as a prison, but as a hard-earned peace.